Okay, one more thing I wanted to show, and I was talking about this right here. In the center hole is the bolt hole that bolts it together. This is just a vent hole. You can see, do the flashlight thing. You can see the little hole right there. That's when the gas comes in. It needs some place for that air to go. So that's a vent hole, and you may see gas dribbling out over on this side, on the back side. This would be like the engine side. And if your float is stuck, it's gonna fill up and dribble out there. It can also, when the, point at it, when you have the jets in here, they are actually at the same level as the fuel, so that when the float stops, it'll fill up, and then it'll fill up that jet also. So if the float is stuck open and this continues to fill up with fuel, it'll flow out of that jet and come dribbling out your carburetor. So if it comes out the throat here, it's filling up to that jet level and leaking out. If it's really stuck, it's going to come all the way up here to the top and then leak out on the back side right here. As you can see, well, I'll do it this way. There's that hole right there, and you know, if it's really stuck, it'll flow out that vent hole also. Usually it'll flow out the jet hole first, because you know the fuel will find its level. But the other thing I wanted to show is, I was talking about, so that's vent hole. The center one is the bolt hole, which bolts it all together. But this top one, closest to the gas adjustment valve, that's where this fuel well, like your drinking well, that's where the fuel well sits, and it screws in over here, and you can see down below here there's just a tiny little port, and it's actually hollow. If you can see down in there, it's hollow. And this is where your put it all away. When you have your idle circuit and your idle mixture, the jet for your idle goes down in there. So in this fuel well is where it draws the fuel for your idle. So there's tiny little porthole, and this one's actually plugged up. There's two of them right there, and this screws in that third hole right there and allows a little bit of fuel to the idle circuit. Now on one of these, I can't remember which one, you can see what happened. You know, it broke off when I was trying to remove it, and then this was stuck down in there, and it was stuck in the bottom of that, you know, down in the bottom of this hole. And when I tried to grab it with a drill bit or something, it would just spin because there's nothing stopping it. What I ended up doing was taking a wire, poking it through the hole in the bowl here to stop it from turning, and then I was able to grab a hold of it and pry it out, actually, and finally got it out. That was like an hour of fighting that little broken off piece of fuel well. So be careful when you're trying to, you know, these were just so rusty that I was just having to drill it out. You can see where I drilled this one out. You know, it's just all chewed to heck, and still has some decent threads on it once I got it out of there. But once I got it, I can't remember if I had to do the easy out on that or just the reverse drill. You can get drills that have the spiral going the opposite way, so when you're drilling, if it catches, it's like the easy out. It'll go ahead and turn it out, because a normal drill is just trying to drill it further in, and I didn't want that, so I got a reverse drill that fit in there and was drilling out the center of it, and that's what happened with this one. It just wouldn't come out, and until finally the bottom broke off of it. So aggravating, very aggravating. This is more what it should come out like, but also, side note, the rebuild kit doesn't include a fuel well, so you have to order another one of those. Had to order they give you the other parts of the float valve and the pin, but they don't give you a float, so another 40-50 bucks. I'm not sure how much the fuel well is going to cost me. You know, there's other parts that were just, some of, like this butterfly plate, I could probably clean it up. You know, this one was in pretty good shape. This one, not so much. And you can tell the smaller one goes in the throttle throat. So it's a smaller, nice thick plate. This other one was right here in is a choke valve and you can see this has a bigger opening than this. Actually, on the Model B carburetors, this is a little bit larger. Gives you a little bit more, probably top end performance when you need all that fuel and air. But I'm gonna have to get another choke butterfly valve because that one is very rough and rusted. I'm surprised because this one's made out of brass and this one was some kind of metal. And I guess one of these carburetors didn't even have, it was totally stripped down. So like the shafts, it didn't have shafts in it, the choke shaft, the plates. So it still had some of the jets, the ones that were stuck, and whoever before me couldn't get them out either. And so I'm gonna wait on doing that. I'm gonna just start preparing these for the epoxy paint and figure out how I'm gonna block off each of these. You know, the threads and the ports, you don't want to get any epoxy paint in those. Okay, I think I have a plan now. Yeah, I've got this metal prep for cleaning parts for getting prepared for paint. And I also have the stuff I'm going to use in the gas tank, this cleaner, degreaser, and metal prep. So I may revert to that to really get these carburetors ready. But I think what I'm going to do, for the epoxy paint is I'm going to mix a little bit of this metal prep. It says mix it with a little bit of water, and then using a stiff brush, scrub, and then rinse it off. I got two buckets down here. Bucket with a little bit of Dawn dishwashing detergent, which is great for degreasing stuff. So I'm going to rinse that off and scrub it. And I got another bucket of just clean water to get it, and then let them totally dry. It was sunny today, so now it's getting all cloudy. The plan was to take them out and set them out in the sun. I may still set them outside and let the heat and the sunshine get to them so that they'll dry, and may actually towel dry them and then set them out. Because it is so humid here in Georgia that you could set bare metal outside and you could almost watch it turn to rust. So I'm going to try to get them as clean as I can, wash it with soap and water, rinse it with water, and then move on to letting them dry and then getting them painted. So I think I'll switch to time lapse here because it'll be a long time and pretty boring stuff to watch. Okay, it's been sitting up about 15 minutes. It smells pretty bad, kind of like sulfur, rotten eggs. Turned it a little bit of a grayish color, and it said after about 15-30 minutes, you know, and these have already been scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed, so you know, I was already starting out with something that was pretty clean. So I'm going to start with the first one I did. Just do a little bit of washing it out. This has water with Dawn detergent in it. Just to just stop the etching process and rinse anything off of it that's on there. I think that's pretty clean. I'm gonna go to my clean water. This is the main bolt that holds it together, but this is the fuel for the main jet. But if you put water in this side and let it go through these ports, it should come out here and it should come out in the main jet area here. So you can kind of flush through by holding your finger on that bottom. I can see the water pouring back out through the fuel well and the main jet and the GAV, the fuel mixture area. So that's pretty clean and flushed. Gotta let them dry. Then they towel them off a little bit, speed the drying up. So I got the dehumidifier going here in the garage just to try to keep it dry. Okay, before painting and finishing it up, I was checking and cleaning up the threads on the carburetors, and make sure you get the fine threads and the right size tap and dies. The other thing I was doing is I'm trying to find the screws and bolts, fine threaded, that will fit into the so I can just screw those in, so when I paint it, it won't mess up the threads. So it's kind of difficult because all these are fine threads, but you can see I found some old engine bolts that were fine thread and some screws that were fine thread, and on the bottoms too found some grease fittings that are fine threaded that'll fit in the GAV in both of them, and some old fine thread bolts. And I'm gonna keep the shaft in there so it'll just keep paint from getting in there. You know, otherwise you'd have to take like a drill or a hone to get it back out. And try to, if you have the old jets, you can just screw them back in, and you know, once you're done, take them out and throw them away. But most of my jets were crap, so I had to drill them out, so I have nothing left to plug the holes with. So like these down in here and down here. So I'm just going to have to try to find some fine thread screws to put back in there. Anyways, yeah, clean out all the threads with taps and dies, and get the all the ports plugged up before you start painting. Okay, we've been letting the carburetors dry out for a day, and I actually have some fans blowing on them too. And I got them all plugged up, all the ports and little screws, so I don't get paint everywhere. And I'm going to try to go to the paint booth and paint them now. Okay, we're out here in my, now we're relocated to my paint booth. And we got the heater turned on nicely today. And the infrared heat. So we're probably, I think we're about 90 degrees, 95 degrees. So let's go down here. And I'm just gonna give them a coat of paint. And the ports so that they don't, the paint doesn't run into the ports. This is the appliance epoxy, so okay, we're going to take a look at the carburetors. I finished spray painting them, and they've dried a couple days now, so hopefully they shouldn't be too sticky. I just kind of plug some of these off. Not really screw them in there hard. Let's get all these off of here. Take a a piece of gas line hose and stuffed it in there. Of course, I'm getting my fingers all. Doesn't look too bad. Let's see. Bottom looks like. This is the Zenith one. I'm gonna run the taps through it and just double check everything and make sure nothing is plugged, and check the passageways.